It might be a little bit late in the season, but I had the idea to paint a palm tree, loose watercolor palm tree. Summer finally arrived where I live. At least last week it was sunny and warm, and this really inspired me. Finally, I've been really stuck when it comes to inspirations. The supplies you need are very minimal. You need watercolors, watercolor paper, I'm using Canson XL. Then you need brushes, I have size 6 and 4, but you can use other sizes, whatever you prefer. And I also added one Zig Real brush marker. This is completely optional, more about it in a bit. A palm tree is very simple to paint. I'm just painting the tree, I'm not painting any additional landscape. But if you're not used to painting yourself and are not really confident, in this video I drew the palm. And I first practiced with a pencil in my sketchbook. And using a pencil compared to watercolors is much easier. So if you don't feel confident, just try first practicing drawing them with a pencil on a printer paper. And then once you feel more confident, use the watercolors. Alright, let's paint the palm tree. I started with the trunk. I diluted burnt umber with water, and first I painted the trunk slightly lighter. Here I started at the top, because that's where I wanted the branches to start. I painted it slightly curved, and it was thinner on the top and wider at the bottom. I didn't want to paint the trunk too wide, therefore the best way is to start thinner. You can always make it wider than the other way around. I cleaned my brush and then I used a clean water below the trunk, creating the ground. I really like when the color from the trunk seeps into the ground. This is supposed to be sandy ground, so I used yellow ochre and I added it along the top of the ground. And I also used more burnt umber on the trunk. Next, I painted the branches with the leaves. I saw a YouTube short where they loosely painted the branches using a light green. They first painted each branch with just 1 or 2 wider strokes. You would paint longer leaves this way, and then they painted the individual leaves. I really like this. You will not see it at the end. I just used it as a guide, but you can skip this if you want. So I started with these long curved strokes. They were a little bit messy, but it doesn't matter. I painted 7 and then I moved on to the next step. Here I didn't wait for the paint to dry. Still using the light green, it's the sap green mixed with a little bit more water, I painted the first coat with individual leaves. With the tip of my brush, I painted short strokes along the branch. You can actually start first by painting a line, and then along the line you do the small strokes. I also swapped the brush. Until here I was using the size 6 and I swapped it for the size 4. Although the clip is sped up, this was a very quick layer. It doesn't need to be super neat. Before I painted the second layer of leaves, I first dried the image using my heat gun. For the next layer, using the sap green again, I just used less water to make it darker. I painted the second layer of leaves. I did the same as on the first layer, or technically second. I just painted short strokes along each branch. As a guide, you can paint a line first as well, but you don't have to. After I finished the leaves, I also painted the trunk again. I used the burnt umber directly from the pan, so it's really dark. And I painted the left side of the trunk to create a shadow. And with a clean damp brush, I spread the color across the trunk because when I paint, I don't like the harsh edges. I prefer it to be soft. When someone else paints that way, no problem, but when I do it, I don't like it. Again, I dried the image and then I moved on the last layer, for which I used the Zig Clean Real Brush Marker. The reason why I decided to use it is the color. I'm not really good at mixing colors, and the only greens I have here are sap green and dark hooker's green. Normally, I really like the hooker's green, but this time it wasn't vibing with me. I wanted something rich and much darker. And the deep green Zig brush marker was perfect in this case. If you don't have these markers, no problem, you can still use the watercolors. All you need is a dark green, and the hooker's green would be great for this as well. Using the markers for the leaves, I did pretty much the same as with watercolors. Here I started with a line, and then I painted short, thin strokes along it. You can actually use the markers like these for the whole tree or just the leaves, especially the real brush markers. They are great to create small, thin lines. One more step, I mixed the burnt umber with Payne's Grey and I painted short strokes along the trunk. This is optional, I just wanted to add this detail. I saw photos of palm trees where they had something similar. The palm tree is pretty much done. If you like it, I would really appreciate if you gave this video a thumbs up, it really helps my channel. But I'm not finished yet, still using the watercolors. One last step I had to do, I had to add splatter. But this is again optional. I let the piece dry and then I used the golden watercolors and I painted the edges of the panel. When I'm making cards, I like to have some kind of a border, and using watercolors is the easiest way of creating a border. Just paint the edges and you're done. If you don't have golden watercolors, you can use the green or the brown. After the panel was dry, I stamped a greeting using a black ink. If you don't have stamps, you can leave it without a greeting or write a greeting with a black pen. Lastly, I added the panel on top of a white card base. I used a glue, but you can use a tape or a foam tape if you would like to add dimension. So the card is done, I really like it. I think this would be a perfect masculine card. I'm actually planning to give it to my dad for his birthday. And I hope you will give it a try. It's really simple to paint, but again, if you are not comfortable with painting, try practicing on a sheet of paper using just a pencil first. I personally found it very helpful. If you would like to see more ideas where I painted from scratch, I have a playlist for you, it should be on your screens. Thank you all so much for watching, and I will see you in my next video.